once again, I cannot be bothered to wear makeup. Blech. Hi guys, and welcome back to Talking Tales, the YouTube series where I talk about writing a novel for the first time. This is part 3, so if you haven't watched the first or second parts, I will link them down below. You're not going to get spoiled on anything, but I do talk more about the novel that I'm writing and the characters, and give you a little bit more information about how I'm finding the NaNoWriMo process and what I'm using NaNoWriMo for. So if that sounds interesting, please do check them out. I worked really hard on them. It is the 19th of November as I'm recording this. Age of Calamity comes out tomorrow, and I am seriously worried about my prospects for NaNoWriMo going forward. But without further ado, let's just get into it. How have I found writing this week? I wouldn't say I've struggled more with writing this week than I did in the first 12 days of November. Actually, I'm finding the actual writing a lot easier because I'm enjoying what I'm writing a lot more than I did when I first started out. However, it's been very difficult to write consistently, and what I mean by that is NaNoWriMo recommends that you write 1,667 words a day to reach your target of 50,000 words by the end of the month. I've been aiming for about 1,700 a day just so I have that little breathing room, and it's also a nicer number than 1,667. But in the first half of this week I was really struggling to hit that number. I would fluctuate between writing 2,000–3,000 words a day, and then the next day I'd write about 800. I did stabilise on the 15th, which was the halfway mark. I got to the halfway mark on the 15th, I was very proud of myself, and since then I've been able to sort of keep slightly ahead of where I'm meant to be, which is good. I have also had one day off this week because Matt, the Twitch streamer I recommended last week, had a Bob Ross painting stream, and that just completely killed my motivation to write, and instead I spent the evening painting. Yeah, I can blame that on someone other than myself, which is nice. Yep, that's my face. Thank you. My nose is so red. Oh my god. Maybe should have worn makeup. Oh well. At the moment I am struggling to enjoy the writing that I'm producing. I think for a while I was like here. For the first week I was like here, didn't really enjoy my writing. Then as I started getting used to it, went up, was enjoying my writing, plateaued a little, and now I'm sort of going back down again. I don't know whether it's because I'm more critical of what I'm writing because I went through that period of enjoying it more, but I'm struggling a little bit. I am fluctuating between loving what I'm writing and hating what I'm writing. Today was sort of like a here, whereas yesterday I think I was like up here. I'm also about 25% of the way through my novel, which is crazy. I just finished chapter 12, I'm starting chapter 13 tomorrow. And yeah, it's wild to think that I'm actually 30,000 words deep into this project that I never actually thought I would get written. So that's good. Next I'm going to talk about the lore. Last week I did a little cutaway and talked to Writing Ella for a bit. Can't be bothered to do that this week. That would involve a costume change and a different film clip, so I'm just not going to bother. But today I thought I'd talk a little bit about the lore of my world. Not quite magic, I'm going to be talking about magic next week, but what I mean by lore is like the world. What kind of realms are there in this world? What are the gods? Things like that. So in its most basic structure, the world that I have come up with, or the universe that I have started writing in, is comprised of 3 main realms. The first is called Daisha. This is the realm of the gods, and I'll put a little diagram here while I'm talking about it. But Daisha is the realm of the gods, and it kind of sits on top of the other 2 realms. Kind of like the meringue on a lemon meringue pie, it kind of sits on top. It's kind of analogous to Mount Olympus or to heaven, if you were going to go by the mythologies of our world, although souls don't go there when they die. It is purely there to house the gods and to let them keep watch over the other 2 realms that they created. Next you have the mortal realms. This is where the book is set. It is the realm that's most similar to our world. I think the way I've set it up, the only main difference between our world and the mortal realms is that the mortal realms have magic. Here's a little map of the mortal realms. It's not very fleshed out fully yet. I fleshed it out more than this, but I can't be bothered to go back and change it yet. Krenin is the country that the book is set in. It's more specifically Alos, which you can see at the very bottom of the landmass there. The Mortal Realms are split into two continents, so you've got the Northern Continent and the Southern Continent. The Northern Continents are home to something called the Holy Cities. These are the bigger cities, kind of like capital cities, except you have more than one in each of the countries. There are 3 countries, Krenin being the one in the middle, and then the 2 on either side, which I haven't named yet. And then the Southern Continents, which are more sporadic. There aren't any countries, but there are smaller kingdoms and wandering clans and nomadic travellers. A lot of trade happens between these 2 land masses, although the people of the Northern Continent do look down on the Southerners. They see them as slightly less civilized because they don't have countries or governments. They are strictly monarchical societies. And then we get to one of the, if not the most interesting realm, Ildair. Geographically, Ildair is the spitting image of the Mortal Realms. It's kind of like a mirror to it. So whereas the Mortal Realms have mortal things, humans, plants, flowers, animals, Ildair is known as the realm of energy. It is populated by beings and people, but they do not have physical forms. Nothing has a physical form, in fact, apart from the landmass itself. As such, life is very, very different in Ildair. It doesn't feature too prominently in the books so far, but it's important for one of the characters, and I'll come to that. Next up we have the gods. There are 6 gods, so I'm just gonna go down the list, give you a little rundown of what they have dominion over, and I'm not going to give you any more information than that. So first on the list we have Asta. She is the goddess of magic and education and academia. Then we have Eron, god of light. This includes sunlight, firelight and starlight. We have Jonas, the god of living things. This includes flora, fauna and lifeblood, which in this universe they believe houses the soul. We have Oka, the goddess of interbeing connection. She presides over unions like weddings and friendships and families and bonds between people. We have Ualu, the goddess of death, and Yaku, the god of the world and the elements. And that's all you're getting. Asta is probably the god I have done the most developing of, and I'll go into more why next week when I talk about the magic system, because obviously she is the god of magic. I do want to touch on one last thing, the Eldari. I won't say much about their origin story because that is very closely tied with the origin of magic, but I will say that the Eldari are a race found in the Mortal Realms. Well, they're not really a race, they're more of a culture, because they didn't evolve in the Mortal Realms like everything else there did. They are a culture of humanoid people, except for 3 main characteristics, I guess you could say. 1, they have pointed ears because they are basically the Fae, or elves, in this world. 2, they have green blood. And 3, they tend to have unnaturally coloured hair. Again, I'll go into a little bit more on why that is next week. So that's a little bit on the lore of this world. I hope it's interesting to you. Again, I will be talking about magic next week, so if that's what you're burning to find out about, do come back. And now to go to the last little section of these weekly wrap-up videos, my writer recommendations. This week I have 3 things like last week, except only one of them is a watching thing and the other 2 are games. So my first little recommendation is Drawfee. I've been watching Drawfee for just over a year now. I was introduced to it last summer by my friend Abby. They are a YouTube channel that draw from prompts that they're given by their audience. As an artist myself, I find it very inspiring to watch their videos. They tend to be quite silly, quite funny. I don't watch every episode, but the ones I do watch, I enjoy greatly. So if you're into art, or watching other people draw, or you just want to laugh at some funny goofs, would recommend. I'll put it in the description below. My second little recommendation is kind of related to Drawfee, only in the fact that they have also played it. It's Monster Camp. Monster Camp is the sequel to the quite popular monster dating simulator Monster Prom. I discovered Monster Prom through the Game Grumps because they did a few episodes on it, showed it to my now ex-boyfriend, and we played the ever-loving hell out of it. It's a multiplayer dating sim where you compete with your other players, or you help your other players to win the affections of your love interest, basically. It's got a lot of charm, and the first game is absolutely phenomenal. I'll pop the Steam page to both Monster Prom and the sequel down in the description, but more specifically, Monster Camp is the one I would like to recommend because it's the one I've been playing the most recently. That's because it came out recently. It's the same formula with slightly different love interests, only Damien and Calculester from the first game are carried over, and instead of being running up to a prom, it's set at a summer camp. Again, same gameplay, same charm, same humour, but I've really enjoyed playing it, even if it makes my laptop sound like it's about to take off. And if visual novels or dating simulators are up your street, or you just want to look at some cute art and get to know some fun characters, I would recommend. The games aren't that expensive, and they're just a good fun time, and you can play with your friends. It's great. And my last little recommendation is Animal Crossing. I got Animal Crossing at launch, I pre-ordered it, and I've pretty much played it almost every single day since it came out in March. Yeah, I've logged about 250 hours into it at this point, and I don't know how. As of today, we just got an update allowing our characters to sit for the first time, which is incredible. Here are some pictures of me trying out all the new reactions because I just think they are adorable. Also, this is my island. Don't have the technology to do an island tour now or at any point in the future, but if I could, I would. But it's also autumn at the moment, and it's just very aesthetically pleasing, and I love my villagers, and it's just a really nice, calm game. If you have a Switch and for some reason you don't already have Animal Crossing and it looks like the kind of thing that you would be into, do check it out. It's so good. It's so good. And again, it is going to be neglected when Age of Calamity comes out tomorrow, so we've got that to look forward to. And that is all for this episode of Talking Tales. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't watched the first 2 episodes, do please go and do that. I think you might enjoy them if you've enjoyed this. And I will talk to you next week. Hope you live your life to the fullest. Bye!